Welcome to the primary knowledge section of the Circle Members Zone. Now, the reason why I suggest that we start off with this information is because it's going to help you understand my terminology, my language, and the way that I look and that I think about hair. And that's really, really important for us to understand at this stage, rather than getting further and further down the line and not understanding what I'm doing and what I'm saying. So what we're going to do is we're going to start talking about shape, because for me, hair is all about shape. When we're cutting hair, we're creating a certain type of shape within the haircut that you'll be able to visually see. So our three core shapes we have is square, round, and triangular. Now, what's so interesting about these three shapes is that they all do different things when we put them into a haircut. Now, what's interesting about shape is that shape is all around us. When we look at different types of objects that are around us in the room, everything will either be rounded and smooth, it will be square where it's got corners, or it will be triangular where it's shorter to longer. And what we need to establish is that we need to make the decision to put one of these shapes in a different zone on the head to create a certain outcome. So let's talk about the square shape to start with. What does a square shape do for us? The square shape is designed through building corners of weight on the curvature of the head. So what do I mean by that? I mean, when you look at me from the front profile view, you'll see that my head is generally rounded, and the hairstyle that I have is mimicking the head shape because it's a very soft, movable, fluid haircut, which has lots of texture to it. If I wanted to put strength into this haircut, I would want to cut a square shape through the sides, building up in length towards the corners, so it builds up a weight of corner. What that will do is introduce more of a streamlined, slim shape from the front, and it will build up a longer length on the curvature, i.e. more length, more weight, giving me something that is stronger and more masculine. So when we think of a square shape, we think of it adding strength into a roundness of the head, into the curvature of the head, and we think of it as adding length and adding weight. A very, very commonly used shape within men's hair. Okay, so moving on to the round shape. Now, the round shape is generally thought of as more of a softer shape, used in more of a feminine way, where you look at it and it hasn't got any strength to it. Generally, it has more fluidity within the haircut. Now, each of the length within the round shape is equal in traveling from the root to the shape itself. So when you're cutting a round shape through the top of the head, all of that length that you're cutting will be exactly the same length, i.e. meaning there's no build-up of length, there's no corners of weight. So a round shape is really useful for removing a lot of weight from an area of the head. Now, the triangular shape is a shape where it's designed as a progressive nature from shorter to longer. So where you want to go from a really short length to a really long length, the line will be cut from short to long, and you'll go from short to long. And what that will do is it will build up a lot of length and a lot of weight very, very quickly. And that's absolutely great for when you want to go for something short at the back of the crown, longer towards the front hairline itself. Or you can use it in a reverse of that. And if you want to keep length around the edges and go short internally, then what we can do is we can go short to long around the external shape, which we've been seeing lots and lots more of in the recent styles, especially over here in London in the UK, with them kind of 90s Britpop, soft rock and roll hairstyles that are coming through. So once we understand the core shapes that we're using and what effect they'll have on the haircut, we now want to think about the key techniques that we can use to achieve the shapes. So first of all, we have our cutting line. Now, obviously our cutting line is always going to be in play when we're cutting hair. If we don't have a cutting line, then we're not cutting the hair. So we always need to have our cutting line in play. It can be with a clipper, or it can be with a scissor, or it can be with a feather razor, or any other tool that you might have in your toolkit. Now, elevation is to which the extent the hair is lifted away from the root. So the more elevation that we use, the higher we're lifting the hair away from the head. Generally, the more elevation that we use, the softer the cutting line will become. So let me put it into context. If you're trying to cut a blunt line on somebody's fringe and you're using no elevation, you'll create a really heavy blunt line. If you want that fringe to become much softer, what you'll do is you'll elevate the fringe up high, you'll cut the same line, so when it falls, the line itself will become very shattered and very soft. So that's a really great example of when to use elevation. Most of the time when we're layering a haircut and we're removing lots of length and weight, we're always elevating the hair, so when the hair falls, it's nice and soft and fluid. So the third and final technique is over direction. Now, over direction can sometimes become confused in many explanations. Now, over direction is to which the extent the hair is transported away from its natural position. So I like to think of elevation as lifting the hair up and down, and over direction, moving it left and right. Now, we don't always need to use over direction, but we can use it to enhance or create other shapes other than your basic shapes. Now, they're your main factors of technique when we're creating shapes. There are some other things that we can discuss as well. Things like tension, which come into play when we're using the hair. The more tension that we're using within our fingers, the more the hair is going to be elastic and it's going to spring back when we release that tension. So if we want a really nice clean cutting line, we'll use lots of tension. But be careful to use it in the right type of hair, because if you're using it in curly hair that's very elastic, then you'll probably cut the length and it'll be much shorter than what you originally thought it was. Also, we can think about the consistency of the wetness of the hair. You don't want to have half the hair damp and half of it really wet, or some of it dry and some of it wet. You need to make sure that the hair itself is consistently damp when you're cutting the haircut itself to get that even result. And then finally, we can think about our body position. Our body position needs to be correct as we're working around the haircut. We need to make sure that we have a straight back, we're using our knees to bend, and we're using the scissors and comb in a correct position to get the best possible result and make sure that it's even throughout the whole haircut itself. So moving on to the results that we can obtain by using our factors of technique. Now, for me, these three things really simplify my understanding of what we're doing when we're cutting hair, because we're either doing graduation, we're either layering a haircut, or we're creating a line, and we're not doing anything else but these three things. So these are our three key results that we get from when we're actually cutting hair. So let's break them down. First of all, we have graduation. Now, what is graduation? So graduation is a build-up of length and weight where it's shorter on the external shape, longer on the internal shape. Now, generally we work graduation through the back and through the sides of the haircut on a man's haircut because we're building up that shape from something shorter to longer. Most of the time you'll see something that is square or triangular. Okay, so you'll mainly see a square shape where you've got that build up of graduation, whether it's with the clippers or the scissors, on something more shorter or mid-length. And you'll see that triangular shape with graduation when we're working more mid-length to longer hairstyles. Okay, so what we've got to think about is what are we trying to do? What is our intention? Are we looking to build something from shorter to longer? If so, that's graduation. Now, our second result is layering. And again, I'm going to ask that question, what does layering mean? So layering is the removal and distribution of weight internally from the head. So you can already see how different it sounds from graduation. Graduation, you've got a build-up, and layering, you've got the removal. So most of the time when you're layering, you're looking to remove and slim down the head shape by reducing the length, therefore also the weight. Most of the time the layering is done through the top of the head on a man's haircut, unless he's got long hair down to his shoulders or longer, and you'll be layering through the back and through the sides as well. Now, the third and final result is a line. Now, don't get confused with the word line. It's not any more confusing than that. It's just the result of you cutting the hair with no elevation no other direction, just to the hair's natural fall on the head. So if you wanted to create something where it was very harsh, like a blunt line on the fringe or around the neckline, you wouldn't pick up the hair with your fingers. You would comb the hair into its natural position and cut on the skin, giving you a very heavy line. This could also come into context when you're working a shape up around the edges, or you want to work some design work with the clippers as well. So you can use your scissors or your clippers to create just a line. Now, with this general knowledge and understanding of the terminology and language that I'm going to be using in my tutorials, you should start to build up a much clearer picture of what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, how I'm doing it, but more importantly, why I'm going to be doing it.